Hey guys, just here with Travis and Sky, and we're going to take you through a shopping tour of a grocery.
Awesome, so let's get started then. So look, a great first place to start is obviously here in the apple section. Apples are pretty popularized these days and have been for a very long time, as they're such an easy contained snack that we can literally just grab and go. Often I find people are on one side of the fence or the other. You're either a red apple person or a green apple person. What about you guys? Which do you like? Green? Yeah. Green. I actually like both, so for different reasons, but that's okay. Red are often a lot sweeter, so sometimes people find them a lot more palatable, whereas the green ones are actually better for things like baking and cooking, stewing, stuff like that. So you can actually, in fact, make a lot of healthy desserts with things like green apples added to them. The other thing about apples that's really important is that all the fiber is actually contained within the skin itself. So you want to make sure that if you are eating an apple or if you are juicing, it's actually better to smoothie than to juice, because you're going to get rid of all that fiber. And the thing about fiber is it doesn't actually absorb, all right? So it's going to bind to those excess sugars that are actually in the fruit itself and pass all the way through you, which is kind of what we want. We don't want to have our blood sugars raised too high from having, you know, a juice or something along those lines. So make sure you're eating the skin. There's a lot of vitamins, minerals, so the micronutrients all jam-packed in there.
Is there big difference between red and green in regards to, apart from flavour, or?
There are some differences in relation to the spectrum of micronutrients that are in there. The red apples have a few more antioxidants, so cancer-fighting micronutrients and things like that in it, whereas the green is again probably a little bit more fibrous because of that green pigment.
Yeah, cool.
Too easy.
Cool.
So how about we talk about oranges?
Sounds
Again, good. Another really popular fruit. Kind of self-contained, easy for a snack, you know, especially halftime oranges if you play sport. The thing about oranges is they're quite high in vitamin C, and vitamin C is amazing for our immune system. So you'll find things like citrus fruits, so that's your limes, your lemons, your mandarins, tangerines, oranges, all that sort of fruit is in fact higher in those immune boosting micronutrients, and they also come out more in winter. So I've said before, you know, that nature is an amazing thing. It actually gives us what we need when we need it. So during winter, the produce that's actually more readily available, that's seasonal to winter, is in fact higher in that immune boosting micronutrients.
Now, is that due to the colour? Like, so we're looking for orange sort of foods?
Yeah, look, vitamin C is kind of goes hand in hand with, you know, that kind of orange pigment and things like that. But in fact, the highest vitamin C containing fruit that's out there is in fact kiwi fruits. So again, kiwi fruit is another random one that isn't actually a winter fruit. It is more of a summer fruit, but it does actually have more vitamin C in it than oranges does. But still have your oranges or your mandarins or whatever it might be, limes, lemons, all of that.
What can we look for with avocados? What do we find with avocados?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing to mention about avocados is just to remind everyone that avocado is in fact a fruit. So because it's seed containing, that's kind of the definition of a fruit versus a vegetable, okay? If it has a seed in it, if it's got seeds, then it's a fruit. So this fruit, you know, coming from Mexico originally, is amazing in terms of what we say is healthy fats, all right? So we want to make sure that we're adding things like avocado to our daily nutrition plans because of all the omega-3s, the omega-6s, all that nice fatty, healthy, monounsaturated fats that we
good
definitely need. Absolutely good for the brain, good for hormone production and things like that as well. So we need fats. There's been a lot of controversy, I suppose, out there in relation to you know, whether we're meant to have fats or if fats are making us fat. It's the type of fat that you're having. So with avocado, it's a good fat, it's a healthy fat. You know, we can have plenty of it, you know, as well as nuts and seeds, things like that, and not be worried that it in fact is going to make us fat, all right?
Any tricks with choosing the avocado? Do you have anything?
Look, there are a lot of tricks out there. Which ones work, who knows? Try not to get the ones that are sitting there frozen. It's harder, you know, to tell whether they're ripe or not. This one, you know, is kind of good in a few days, you would say. So it doesn't look like it's got any bruising on it. It doesn't have any squishy bits, feels nice and firm, but is still that green color. Whereas the other one you had, so the darker one, we can give it a gentle squeeze and feel that it's probably ready to use today. So it all just depends on whether you want a today avocado or whether you want a tomorrow avocado, exactly. So
Okay, so what we're going to look at are one of my favourite bananas. Sky, tell us about some bananas.
yeah, so look, bananas are an amazing food. So they are a fruit. They're in fact high in potassium, so that's why they're quite good for us. So that's a mineral that we definitely need.
Cramps?
Yes, good for cramps, exactly. As well as magnesium is good for cramps, definitely. The other great thing about bananas is that they are quite a carbohydrate-filled fruit. So they're really good at fattening out things like smoothies, you know, eating them as a heartier snack. Adding them to breakfast or whatever you want to do with them. Yeah, they're quite good in that way. Versatile.
Hands down, my favourite trick with bananas and smoothies, peel them and freeze them.
Absolutely.
Hands
yeah,
down.
yeah.
Have to peel them first though.
Yes, definitely. So when you
a pain to
add
peel them
them,
after.
yeah, absolutely. And so when you add them, then obviously to the blitzer, it's going to turn that smoothie into a nice kind of icy but creamy consistency. So
The best.
yes. You can do that with berries as well. So I make a banana smoothie that also has berries in it, and the berries, in fact, is what makes it that kind of icy consistency. So some really great ideas. I find a lot of people now want lazy, easy, simple breakfast on the go. So smoothies is a really great way to be able to do that. The idea and the trick with smoothies, though, is that you really need to fatten them out. So they need to have fruit. They need to have some protein in there. So you can add a protein, scoop of protein, exactly, something like oats. Berries, you know, whatever you can, you know, a handful of nuts to make it a real breakfast, not just a quick
butter?
liquid.
A little bit of peanut butter?
Peanut butter, absolutely, yeah. Some kind of nut butter
No
is amazing.
sugar, right?
Yeah.
There's no need for the extra sugar in
Not
there.
at all. So you don't need a sweetener like a honey or a maple syrup or something like that. And although those aren't the worst of the worst types of sugars that are out there, it is a little bit unnecessary, you know, and your taste buds actually get used to not having that amount of sweetness.
So we're over here, Sky, you said, interesting fact you said earlier, the highest amount of vitamin C. Kiwi
Yeah,
fruit?
exactly.
What else?
So what else? There's a lot of fiber again in the skin. So it's another one of those ones, you know, we spoke about that fence before. You're either on one side or the other. You either eat the skin of a kiwi fruit or you don't. So I, in fact, you know, always from being a kid, always ate the skin. And to this day, you know, definitely do when I have kiwi fruit because it is such a important, yeah, look at this face. I can see you on the other side of the fence.
Seems a little furry for my liking.
Yeah, the problem is again that you know, all of the, or a lot of the goodness is contained within that skin. It's pretty much the same with most fruits, you know, but obviously we steer clear of the skin in some things like oranges, like bananas and whatever. But with the kiwi fruit, you know, if you can stomach the furriness or if you can handle that on the palate, it's definitely worth the bite.
Easy.
Too
All
easy.
right, walking over here to the
Yeah, stepping over
tomatoes.
here.
What have we got?
So, you know, it's really important. We talk about eating a rainbow all the time. And the reason we talk about that is because there are so many different micronutrients in all the different colors. And so to get the full spectrum, you know, these micronutrients are essential to life. So essential in medical terms basically means we can't create them ourselves. So we need to get them in. Something like magnesium is used in over 300 processes within the body. So it's a pretty important micronutrient to be able to get. So when we're eating our fruits and vegetables, and again, tomato is in fact a fruit, we don't want to miss things like, you know, our bright reds, our bright purples, you know, the yellows, all those different kind of colors. I think people can get a bit complacent. I don't want to say lazy, but may stick to, you know, the dark leafy greens, which is good, and sometimes white and beige. We want to step a little bit away from the whites and stuff and you know, step more into some reds, of tomato and purples, as well as berries, that sort of thing, those colours. Beetroot, yeah, again, highly antioxidant, which means, you know, they're free radical fighting, so stepping us away from things like cancer and things like that. So really important to get a lot of those, you know, reds, purples, yellows, all of those colours in.
Check out these melons, Sky.
Yeah, they're beauties, they are. How about we put those down though and talk about something else? Let's talk about papaya. So a really interesting fact about papaya is that it has a lot of digestive enzymes within it. So often people are sort of like, what am I going to have after dinner? You know, what can I have to kind of quench that sugar craving? I'm having something like papaya, as you can see on this side, or pineapple on this side is a really great trick, because not only are they going to get that bit of sweetness into you, so you feel like you're having a bit of dessert when maybe really you're not. But the extra enzymes that are contained within both of these fruits are going to help break down the dinner that you've just had. So having those extra digestive enzymes, you know, after dinner time is super important, just to help digestion as we start to kind of go to sleep and our digestion starts to switch off.
I always feel like papaya is that thing they fill fruit salads with, and you're like, oh, where's the rest of the
where's
stuff?
where is it? Yeah, it's true, but you know what? I find they do that with honeydew melon at most.
True.
But really, you know, it is actually one of the best kind of fruits that are out there. We kind of forget about it. It may not be so seasonal to Australia, let's say. But yeah, really important, and you know, again, more seasonally is probably our good old Queensland pineapples, and if you can as well, eat a little bit of that core. So sometimes people want to just eat the outside and steer away from that little bit in the middle, but to be honest, that's actually where most of the digestive enzymes are. So you don't have to eat the whole entire core, but just get, you know, a little bit on the end there, yeah, just to help with digestion.
And if we go on here, watermelons as well. We're in sort of my favourite section.
Oh, this is the good one, is it? Right.
Pineapples and watermelons.
Yes. So the higher sugar fruits probably, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So look, watermelon is up there. That's why sometimes, you know, again, juicing, watermelon juice is often, because it's so high in water content, people like to juice with watermelon, but it is really high in sugars, so we don't want to have too much of it. I don't want to say everything in moderation, those words are about to come out of my mouth, it's very overused. But, you know, look, there's nothing wrong with having a bit of watermelon, you know, in the summer when it's freshest, but yeah, you don't want to overdose. So big boy like you don't want to eat an entire one or polish off, you know. Yeah, no, not for you.
Not with vodka in it either.
Not with vodka, no vodka.
We're going to look at some of the leafy vegetables, a lot of the sort of dark green things. Sky, tell us about.
Yes.
What are we looking at?
So we're looking at kale. Again, it's one of those things whether you either love it or hate it, I find. People use kale in many different ways, just specifically, you know, baking it or within salads and things like that. The thing is, you know, it's put there as a bit of a superfood, you know, I use air quotes, but any of the deep green leafy vegetables are nice and fibrous, so they have a lot of fiber in them, a lot of iron, often some other vitamins and minerals are in there too. They are in fact kind of unlimited within your nutrition plan as well. Having more fibrous green vegetables is better for us. You're not going to, you know, say put on weight or have any grand health implications in a negative way from eating more leafy green vegetables. So ensure they're nice and unlimited within what your intake is.
Yeah. All right, so we're looking at the corn now. A lot of people's favourite.
Absolutely, I was going to say the exact same thing. The reason it's one of people's favourite vegetables is because it is in fact quite sweet, all right? So although there are some micronutrients, you know, vitamins and minerals within it, it's more of a filler type of a food, to be honest with you. Absolutely have it. Don't let it be your only, you know, vegetable intake all the time. Having it a couple of times a week is not really a problem. But again, you don't want it to be on repeat every single single night.
Probably
Peas
not
are a little
smothering
bit,
it with butter.
oh gosh, absolutely, yeah, that's it. You know, drowning in butter and salt and all the rest of it. Having it either within some kind of sauce that you're already cooking, or to complement a type of cuisine, like if you're having some Mexican food or whatever it might be, not a problem. But again, you know, trying not to overdo it and rely on it too heavily as your only vegetable intake for a day. Peas actually are really similar, so a lot of people will go to the frozen section and just grab their frozen peas and their frozen corn. I find that they're great go-tos as just in case type of stuff. You know, we all have busy lives. We get home, we need simple food, so you know, having those as a just in case kind of thing, yeah, that's it, that are sitting there, that are going to hold for a while. Frozen food is a lot better these days than it used to be too, so you know, having a few things as the just in case, you know, having on the just in case pile rather, is a good idea, but again, not relying on peas and corn as the go-to every single night. So look, we're just going to quickly talk about carrots as well. Carrots are quite popularized. You can use them in many different ways. They're a good tick on the old orange color, you know, and we can actually have them on a regular basis and it'd be quite good for us. Carrots are quite good for not only our skin, but for our eyes as well. You do hear, you know, horror stories of people eating too many carrots and turning orange. I can tell you that, you know, you're going to have to eat a whole lot of carrots to be able to get to the point where your skin is actually turning orange. But definitely, you know, they can be a go-to on a regular basis within your nutrition plans. They are high in carbohydrate as well. So, you know, making sure you're balancing it out with the other foods that you're having and still hitting maybe some leafy greens, some reds or oranges, you know, anything with that kind of orange pigment. So if you think about it, that's pumpkin, carrots, and sweet potato. All of those, again, are our higher carbohydrate containing vegetables. So having them a little bit in moderation and not overdosing, you know, having too many, but still absolutely incorporating them, you know, every day without fail.
Beetroot's probably not one of my favourite ones, to be honest.
Really?
No,
Right, okay.
Not my favourite.
How have you had it though? How have you tried it?
Probably in those tins where it's all red and all
Right,
that, like
okay,
a
yeah.
hamburger or something.
Okay,
It's just-
fantastic.
yeah.
You're a bad Australian. So
Potentially.
look, a lot of people are scared, I think, by beetroot because, you know, you do kind of have to work for it a little bit, I suppose, if you are buying it in this fresh way that it actually comes. So in fact, you know, you do need to peel or scour, you know, scrub the outside layer off. Chopping it up and baking it is a really great way of cooking it, in fact. So if you're doing a nice big baked dinner, throwing beetroot in there as a purple, you know, ticking that box, and getting, you know, the added benefits from it that way. It does take a little longer to cook though. So if you are making a nice baked dinner, you want to cut it a little bit smaller than say you would your potatoes or something along those lines, because it's going to take longer to cook, all right? But very nutritious, you know, absolutely. If we can get it in, again, you know, juices, it's not too bad, or in this sort of fresh form, and adding it as often as possible, definitely.
So right next to the beetroot here, we've got rhubarb. Now this is one of my more favoured things. Used to love apple and rhubarb crumble.
Yes, absolutely. That pretty much is the main way that people use rhubarb, is, you know, within that winter time, as a nice broken down, you know, boiled kind of vegetable. It is a vegetable, in fact. So a lot of people think it's a fruit because we do use it in such a way for desserts and for a crumble. Yeah, it is a bit, it's tart as well though. Often there's a bit of sweetness added to it, which is why, yeah, the crumbles are so delicious. I believe there is a way, in fact, you can use the leaves as well. It's either that or the leaves are totally poisonous. I can't quite remember.
We'll have
So
to
maybe
figure
stay
that out
away.
later.
Yeah. So one of my favorites is, in fact, pumpkin. I find that it's really versatile and I can use it in lots of different ways. At home, I use it for pasta sauces. So I you know, boil the pumpkin all the way down, and then until it's basically a mashable consistency, and add all sorts of other different things to it. Lots of flavor, lots of herbs, lots of spices, and you can make amazing pasta sauces, curry sauces. Obviously you can bake it as well, and as well make soup out of it. So the different varieties, or the two main ones that we get here in Australia, is in fact the Kensington. So that's this one. It's the rounder variety, darker pigment on the outside, and then we have the butternut pumpkin. So that's this one. This is a half. If you can see, it's that lighter one. So your butternut pumpkin is amazing to do as soup. That's how you would utilize this one. Anything else, if you're baking or if you're going to maybe mash it or break it down in some way, then you want to go for the Kensington, all right? Again, if you are making soups with the butternut pumpkin, the really good trick is to add lots of garlic and ginger as well. Even if you don't like ginger, I know some people are a bit against it. You won't necessarily taste it a whole bunch, but it really brings out the flavor. That's the chef in me telling you this. It definitely brings out the flavor of that butternut pumpkin and really lightens it up, all right? So you want to make sure that the flesh, as these ones are, is nice and sort of bright in pigment, okay? Sometimes you can see if they're a little bit blonde, you know that they're not quite ripe yet, and perhaps they've been cut open before they were ready, and they're not going to have as much flavor. They're going to be a bit harder to cut through, but all of these ones, you know, looking at them, you can see that they're quite bright in that orange color. So definitely a go-to, very versatile, you know, use it in so many different ways, and it's always good to know which variety to pick.
So a couple of things that go together, I suppose, cauliflower and broccoli?
Yeah, absolutely. They're both quite delicious. Again, you know, you're able to use them in many different ways. Some people don't realize you can actually bake both cauliflower and broccoli. That's in fact my favorite way of eating either of them. You know, they are both quite fibrous, so you got to think, although the cauliflower is white in pigment, it's more similar to eating like a dark green thing, say like this, than it's not, you know. So you can use them interchangeably as well, you know, using the florets. So that's what these little end bits are called. You know, just chopping them off and having them however you please.
Super common now, the cauliflower rice.
Absolutely,
stuff like that.
yeah. So putting it in the
food
processor, breaking it down, you know, having it
pan fry, like just quickly pan
yeah,
fried.
just quickly, just a little bit. You don't have to add too much to it. You know, salt or butter or anything like that. Just plain as is. You know, use the sauce. You can make pizza bases and things out of it. So there's a lot of recipes online these days for cauliflower. It's kind of becoming a bit more popularized, which is really great. You know, stepping us away from some of those more carby foods. Not that carbs are evil, but just giving us a lot more options and different ways of being able to get vegetables in us. Yeah, through things like cauliflower and broccoli.
So Sky, we've got our two cabbages. Is it white cabbage?
It is
or
white,
plain
actually,
cabbage,
yes, yeah.
And then the red cabbage?
Yes, in fact.
Talk about the red cabbage?
Yeah, so it is quite funny that obviously you can see that the pigment of the white is a little bit green, and the pigment of the red cabbage is actually quite purple. So purple is really good for you, and again, it's another easy way to hit that purple-red family of colours. My favourite way of actually having purple cabbage is using the mandolin. To be honest with you, I don't use the mandolin, my partner does, because I'm likely to slice my finger off. But chopping it up into really fine amounts and then using it for something like a Buddha bowl at home. So that's actually my literally favourite recipe to make late at night when I've just gotten home from work and I want something that's totally delicious, nutrient dense. I make Buddha bowls, all right? It takes me less than 12 minutes. The only thing that takes 12 minutes is actually cooking some rice, and I can have things like, you know, rice in it, you know, the mandolin cabbage, so chopped up nice, carrots, you can have some tomatoes, some spinach leaves, so it's all just, you know, straight out of the pack almost, putting it in a nice bright rainbow spiral within the bowl, dollop of hummus, a handful of nuts, and you're good to go. So it's a really easy thing to have and start adding if you just get a bit smart about how to use it.
There you go. Sky, so we're over here at the dried spices.
Absolutely. So look, this makes me so happy. It's not funny. You know, I wish I had this at home. Spices are amazing, not only for the flavour that they're able to bring to foods, but also the medicinal effects. So things like turmeric, which I can see down the bottom there, it's the very orange one. is really great for anti-inflammatory. So what's contained in turmeric is curcumin. So you may have heard it's a bit interchangeable. Turmeric is the spice as we know it. Curcumin is actually the medicinal anti-inflammatory that's within it. So if you have things like arthritis or an inflamed bowel or different inflammation diseases, having some curcumin or turmeric is really great. Some other great ones that I can see here somewhere we've got is cinnamon. Cinnamon's another really good one for, can you find it? Perfect cinnamon sticks, balancing blood sugars, all right? So if you do have, sort of highs and lows, or you spike, your energy, and then maybe you drop off in the afternoon, or maybe you have some blood sugar issues, having some cinnamon is in fact really good and helpful to treat that and to just kind of bring things back in line. Obviously, things like the ground spices, you want to cook them off a little bit first. So within the pan or something, if you are making, say, a curry, or if you're cooking maybe some meat, you can put a little bit on the outside and just do a nice turn. Whereas, there are other spices which we're going to talk about that are, say, more wet spices or fresh spices that you use a little bit differently.
Awesome. Quick discussion then about processed meat, and Sky gave us a little bit of info which is quite shocking to us, and really for me, I don't mind my prosciutto and stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Sky, what was the...
So look, obviously a lot of these meats, so salamis, prosciutto, as you said, bacon is quite popular. They have just been added, or they've been added for a little while now actually, to the World Health Organization, so WHO, as their stage 1 carcinogen. So they actually have a list of things, whether it be the contraceptive pill, whether it be smoking, whether it be whatever, in our environment, that can be classed as cancer causing. And in fact, these sorts of deli meats and cured meats have been added to that list. So they are at the highest level, equal to things like smoking on the World Health Organization's list. So really crazy. They are still here and we're still able to purchase them, but it's just one of those things you want to weigh up and make sure that, you're not relying on processed ham or something like that in sandwiches every single day. Again, I don't want to say everything in moderation, because really we shouldn't be having things in moderation that are cancer causing. But if you are having a little bit, don't freak out too much, but just monitor the amount in which you're having and have that in the back of your mind that they are in fact on that list. You can look it up yourself. Yes.
All right, so Sky, we've got potatoes and sweet potatoes. If you can run us through, are they the same thing? Are they different? The benefits? What's better? What's worse?
Yeah, okay. So look, potatoes are great. They're often sort of referred to as a healthy carbohydrate, but more so the sweet potato, to be honest with you. It does have a little bit more pigment to it, which again is obviously going to mean more micronutrients contained within. And it's a bit more slow reactive carbohydrate too. So if we know anything about carbohydrates, they are our main energy source. They do spike our blood sugars, so we want to make sure that we're having quality carbohydrates to ensure that we're keeping a nice level without sort of spiking and then dropping off and doing all sorts of things to our system. And then often, storing the excess carbohydrate as fat is normally the biggest problem. So if we stay more towards the sweet potato rather than the white potatoes, we can have white potatoes on the odd occasion. A lot of people like baking potatoes. You can still bake sweet potatoes, so why not, because you're going to be getting more variety of nutrition, of nutrients contained within.
Awesome. Just one thing with that, I was just reading the label. It's one thing that tricked me. It's also called kumara, is it not, Sky?
Absolutely. There's actually another name that I can't remember off the top of my head that it's called as well. So sometimes you'll see the more purple variety. So there are kind of orange ones and more purple skinned. I'm just trying to see if we have any here. Not quite. That can in fact be called different things, but it's all kind of that same sweet potato vegetable.
All right, so Sky, onions. We got 3 different varieties here. We got the Spanish onions, we got the white onions, and we got the brown onions. if you could tell us a little bit about onions in general and the differences between them.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, the chef in me kind of wants to talk to you about onions more so than the nutritionist in me, just because people aren't always clear on which variety they should be using. So the thing about the Spanish onions, they're really good for adding to salad and things like that. Some people find them quite overpowering though, so maybe you don't want to add too much to it. White onion you can actually use in the same way. So chopping it up nice and fine and adding it to say a salad or something along those lines. Again, it's got a little bit of a sweeter taste, but not as overpowering as the red onion. Here we've got like the brown onions. The brown onions are really good for cooking and having kind of on their own. So if you were barbecuing some onions, you can use the brown or the white a little bit interchangeably within recipes. But generally, your cooking onion, the go-to cooking onion would be more that brown variety. So the other thing about onions is that often people can find that they upset their tummies a little bit. So there's a family of vegetables, garlic's in the same family as onions are. And some people can react a little bit more to these foods and some of the nutrients contained within. So just be careful and kind of find your tolerance to these foods.
All right, so Sky, one question with onions. I cry like a baby when I cut them. Is that normal? Is it everyone? Is it some people? Is it particular onions? Anything I can do?
I know you pretty well, Jono, and I don't think it's normal for you to cry like a baby. However, or maybe it is pretty normal to you. But when we are cutting onions, if you are crying like a baby, to be honest, it generally means that the onion is a bit fresher. So there's more kind of liquid and, more of that almost gassiness that goes into the air, that vapor that it makes us cry and kind of react to it. Some people react more than others, definitely. So if you cry like a baby, others may not. It's hard. There's a lot of tips and tricks out there on what to do. If you don't cut the end of the onion, or you do cut the end of the onion, or you wash the onion while you're cutting it, or you put a cloth over the onion and try and cut it. I think it's kind of inevitable, and just to kind of go with it and try not to have your head too far over whatever you're cooking the onion in, so that kind of vapor isn't getting you. And maybe open a window.
All right. So we're over here at you called them the wet.
Yes, the wet spices.
Yeah. Garlic and ginger.
Absolutely. So look, they are amazing, and we can add them to as many things as we possibly can, I believe. They're massive for immune boosting. So again, we get lots of health benefits and health effects from, having ginger and garlic in particular as often as we possibly can. So definitely add them to your soups, to your pastas, to your, everything that you can. Add them, and hopefully you enjoy them too.
So we've moved on from the garlic, the ginger, to the mushrooms.
Yeah, look, mushrooms is one of those things, again, you either love them or you hate them. They can be done really well and they can be done poorly. The most important thing though about mushrooms and things from that kind of mushroom family is that they're immune modulating. So what that means is that if your immune system is down, it helps to amp it back up. And if your immune system is kind of up and maybe a bit hyperreactive, it can actually help to bring your immune system back down and stabilize it. So again, maybe if you're a bit sick, during that winter time, it's a really great idea to, add some mushrooms, into some of the things that you're cooking. Not just these varieties, but things like shiitake mushrooms, portobello. I think there's, lots of different varieties out there. The more flavorful they are, the more fancy mushroom you can get, often the more medicinal content they have within them.
There you go.
So another real great thing to add to your meals as often as possible is chili, and anything from this kind of chili family, So we've got capsicums in a variety of varieties and colors, again, each containing a different spectrum of micronutrients. So, even if you're having a salad, you could literally get 2 of the different capsicums and put both varieties in there. They're quite sweet, they're quite, moist. So, it gives that nice burst of flavour to any salad, to any meal that you're making. With chilies, often in herbal medicine, we're going a little bit far out there for a second. It's said that if you're more of a subdued kind of a person, if you're a bit laid back, if you're a procrastinator, maybe you're cold-blooded, maybe you like winter a lot better, then it's really important to add things that are like fiery foods to your nutrition, to amp you up, to give you that energy, to put put a fire in your gut, and get you, moving and active in existence. And obviously the opposite is the same. If you're a hypo person, if you're, too busy for your own good, if you love the warmth and being busy and all the rest of it, then, definitely having some more cooling things, say something like cucumbers, more often, is a really good idea to just kind of bring you back down and cool you and slow you right down. So look, I'm hanging out now down by the nut section, one of my favorite sections. Nuts are amazing for us. Again, they're a healthy fat. So if we think about those healthy fats, the monounsaturated, polyunsaturated stuff we want to get plenty of us in, very hormone protective, brain protective, immune protective. Nuts is kind of one of those go-tos. So we want to make sure that we're not getting the roasted and salted kind of varieties. Things like almonds are really good. Basically, you think about your ABCs, all right? So almonds is kind of number one, Brazil nuts number two, C's for cashew, and also walnuts are quite good. Cashew nuts, I do have to say, are a little bit higher in saturated fats. So, we want to have them in a bit of a smaller amount. There's a lot of diet advice out there that we should be only having, 12 nuts at any one time. Look, it's not worth obsessing that much over. You just want to grab a handful and have that handful, whether that be as a snack with a banana or thrown on top of a salad, things like pistachio nuts or my favorite, I'm going to forget, pine nuts. Oh my goodness. I get in trouble. I eat far too many pine nuts in handfuls and they're quite expensive, but they're absolutely delicious and they have a lot of really great health benefits within them. So again, if you're trying to think what nuts should you get, stick to the ABCs and also walnuts. So that's your W, almonds, Brazil nuts, cashew nuts, walnuts, they're kind of your top four. So I thought it might be a really great idea just while we're here to also explain to you maple syrup and honey, all right? So it's really good to kind of moderate the amount of sugar that we're having. So if we are having something like a tea, perhaps adding a little bit of honey to that, or if maybe we're making something, baking or whatever, we can actually use maple syrup instead. Maple syrup is actually, in fact, better than honey in some ways. Manuka honey is very high in amazing things. It's quite expensive though. But with maple syrup, if we're getting the good quality stuff, so we're not talking about maple flavored syrup and we're not talking about 100%, sometimes it says a country name, maple syrup. You want to make sure you're getting, the proper stuff. So turn it over, make sure it's 100% Canadian maple syrup or whatever, that there are no other ingredients in it. It's quite high in potassium and magnesium. Again, some of those essential minerals that we need. So really, if we're going to have something that's got that little bit of extra sweetness in it, why wouldn't we want to be hitting, some of that micronutrient content that we need to be having as well. With, white refined sugars and things like that, they are void of all nutrition. They have been bleached. They, skyrocket our blood sugars and things like that too. Whereas, honey and more in particular, maple syrup is actually lower in GI. So it means that within our body, it actually reacts differently and it doesn't spike our blood sugars as much as some other sweeteners and sweet products. So look, berries are super important to mention. They are kind of classed as a bit of a superfood. We obviously have some really nice rich pigments, whether it be the reds, the blues and the purples. So we don't often get a lot of blue in us. So we want to make sure that when we can hit blue, having blueberries, we get them. Again, frozen foods these days are a little bit higher in standard. So, if you do find that your berries are getting a little more expensive, these actually are really amazingly priced. You can kind of get some frozen varieties, add them to smoothies and things like that. The thing about berries is that although they're fruit, they're quite low in sugar content and they're really high in other micronutrients, antioxidants, so really big cancer-fighting fruit, in fact. So really you can kind of be having berries unlimited for the most part. So, you want to be hitting your fibrous green vegetables. And if you need a bit of sweet, berries are really great again for that kind of unlimited amount within a day. Within reason, without being worried about, spiking blood sugars or doing anything bad by any means. So another really popularized thing at the moment, you know, that's out there as a bit of a superfood is coconut oil. There's so many different coconut products, coconut water, coconut milk, coconut cream. What I'm going to focus on a little bit is just the coconut oil for a minute. Now, the thing about coconut oil, people say, is it a good fat or is it a bad fat? And the honest answer is it's kind of in between. So the thing is that it is in fact a saturated fat, which we do suggest is a bit more of the bad fats. I use air quotes, you know, but we want to keep it to a minimum. So under 20 grams of saturated fat per day is okay, as well within good nutritional bounds. It is a saturated fat, it is high in saturated fat, but how it works within the body is more like a non-saturated fat, because it's actually what's called a medium chain fatty acid. Now that might mean absolutely nothing to you, and that's totally fine, but all you need to know is that it is a saturated fat that within the body doesn't quite react or work the same as normal saturated fats, okay? So that's why we kind of think, oh, is it a good fat or is it a bad fat? There's so many different studies out there saying one way or another. The best practice idea is to just make sure that any saturated fat that you are having is kept under that 20 grams per day, and that we're steering more towards those obvious healthy fats like the nuts, avocado, even egg yolk and things like that within reason.
All right, so we've finished our walkthrough here with Sky.
Absolutely.
Thank you for taking us through today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Telling us all about it, so we're going to go shopping.
Sounds good.